Hi folks, I'm Douglas Rintoul, here again with my friend Jay Shah.
Hi everybody.
Earlier we did our spoiler-free review of the new movie Star Wars The Last Jedi, so if you haven't checked that out, please go check it out before you watch this. This is the spoiler-filled review, so don't watch it unless you've seen the movie.
All right, so we're going to handle this review in chronological order of how the movie went. So it starts with a really good space battle. And choreographically and so on, it has, in my opinion, a horrible joke, which is pretty much a your mama joke between Poe and Hux, which I just found distasteful. And I think that Poe opened with a joke against Kylo Ren in the first movie, which I didn't like. He did another one against Hux, which I also didn't like.
Wow, I didn't make that parallel in my head, but yeah, Poe.
He's a charming, good guy. It was a horrible joke. It was delivered well, but it's just a bad joke.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac, the actor who plays Poe, he has a great screen presence. He delivers this long. Essentially, it's a prank call in space. This prank call scene in space that it really doesn't feel like it belongs in a Star Wars movie. But I have to admit, to me, it was pretty funny.
The thing I don't like about it is it dulls it down. It makes it's crass. And
it is crass.
And that I think that doesn't have a place in a Star Wars movie.
I think it's worse than Darth Vader saying that someone shouldn't choke on their aspirations.
Yeah. Hopefully the trend doesn't continue.
Yeah, because if it became more crass than what it was in this opening scene, then I would actually have a big problem with it. As opposed to, I was still able to enjoy the movie and I laughed. I thought it was funny. If it had gone on any longer or been any more detailed, I wouldn't have thought it was funny anymore.
But it's funny in a cheap way.
It is funny in a cheap way.
And I don't like cheap stuff in Star Wars.
Yeah, it feels like someone wrote it. It is not a natural way for that interaction to have gone.
By contrast, an amazingly done, well done joke, which is not a joke at all, but really funny. And it was one of the writers, according to commentary, favorite things to write in the entire original trilogy. When Han Solo is talking to the computer thing in the Death Star, after they kill these guys, are about to rescue the princess, and can we do this actually? I'll be Han, you be the storm. So it's like,
I hope I can get it right. Okay,
it's something like this. So basically, they clear out all these guys, and then some guy radios up it.
We've heard blaster fire. Give a full report, 86.
Negative. Don't send anybody. It was just a radioactive leak. No, nothing's wrong here. Nothing at all.
Radiation leak. Give your service number. Who is this?
Boring conversation anyway. Kid, we're gonna have company. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, that was a cool moment, and it felt very natural.
Yes. Right, well done, not a forced joke, especially one of that. And if you compare it to how a well done joke is done, this joke is shameful.
I mean, I will say I think this joke is a little funnier, but it also belongs in SNL rather than in Star Wars. It's a common problem with Disney-produced movies, like Marvel movies as well, is that they have jokes in them that are made to make the to increase the levity in the movie without any thought to whether or not people in the audience want to take the movie kind of seriously. Because you can have jokes that don't detract from that, and this isn't that. Like, Jay gave an example of one that was, and this is not. Like, a lot of the Marvel movies have jokes that are like this as well, that are intended to just lighten the mood, and that have no real natural place in the flow of the movie.
Everything is done with flow. Right. This joke was awkwardly placed, awkwardly done, and a bad joke, which gets a cheap laugh. And none of those things apply to the Han Solo thing I just talked about.
I'd like to talk about my one actual problem with the space battle, other than the joke, which I didn't have a big problem with. My one problem with the space battle, I thought it looked cool and stuff, but the fact that the rebels were running away like this, we're on the retreat, we're doing so poorly at the beginning, makes the fact that they managed to do so much damage. They wipe out like an entire huge space destroyer or something. They wipe out this big ship, is my point. And the way the battle goes, it makes the First Order look really incompetent, and it starts a trend the movie has of making, in particular, General Hux, who is like the most competent member of the First Order in the first movie, look like he's a complete tool. This guy looks like a moron.
I mean, the guy even says, "I believe, sir, he is tooling with you."
I mean, yeah, that starts it off. And then he's really ineffective in the battle. He makes lots of bad decisions, and the only reason he reclaims any advantage is because the Empire, or the First Order...
It's good you corrected yourself.
The First Order...
Do not make that mistake.
The knockoff of the Empire, the off-brand Empire, has way better weaponry and way larger ships. That's the only reason he reclaims any advantage. There is absolutely no skill or thought required. It's like playing a video game where you can level grind so you just get stronger than the bosses. Yes, you did work to get that, but no, it doesn't show any great skill that you're beating them. Bless you. So that was a problem I had, was that I felt it took away from, well, the idea that the First Order had competence.
Well, the battle also starts a trend where protagonists are just defying orders, which is so Poe is told like Leia says, "Come back right now, that's an order," and he just takes off his headphones or something.
Yeah.
Now in A New Hope, that happens once with Luke when he shuts off his computer at the end because Obi-Wan tells him to use the Force.
Right. He received orders that countermanded the instructions to use the computer.
Right, and
from somebody with more wisdom. There was only one.
It fit in the context of the larger movie of use your feelings. You don't need the computer to do it. And then his very decision to do that is what allowed him to destroy the Death Star. And my point is, again, it fit. Whereas in this thing, Poe was like, "Nah, I'm not going to listen to you." So Leia has no command of him at all. And stuff like this happens more through the movie. Like Poe, I don't know who, but it's either Finn or Poe or someone just keeps just.
It was Poe a few times and then Finn at the end, but it makes Poe look like a reckless, headstrong idiot, and he literally gets people on his own team killed. In fact, he loses a significant portion of the Resistance's fleet. He loses all of their bombers, which was significant since the bombers were apparently what had the power to destroy a massive Star Destroyer. So part of the reason the Resistance is at a disadvantage for the rest of the movie is that Poe wasted their resources on one really cool kill of a giant spaceship. And it's annoying to me because later on it's pretty clear that all of the other leaders of the Resistance really think Poe is cool and good, and even if he's like a little bit of a flyboy, I think is the term they use.
Yeah, I get that he's rebellious and all that. That's fine, but
he doesn't
just done to excess is what happens in this one. He's disobeying orders the entire film.
It
makes more sense when someone is obedient than disobeys, like what Luke does at the end.
Yeah, it's
in New Hope.
It makes him look like in the military there are people who have command potential and people who don't. It makes him look like someone who shouldn't be put in command. And that's bad because then the movie makes it seem as though the other characters feel like he's a leader. And including Leia seems to feel like he's a leader throughout the movie. And it's just, are they grooming him to be the new leader of the Resistance in the next movie? I could see that, especially, given that the actress Carrie Fisher, who plays Leia, is dead, but it feels like they're putting a reckless person in charge if that happens after this movie.
Yeah, and so moving further beyond the first battle, so everything we've said so far is critical. We like the movie. We do like it.
Hey, I said I liked the battle. I did like the battle.
Yeah. But getting into more critical stuff, Leia ends up in outer space and looks dead, and then somehow so this Jedi awakening that happened for her in episode 5, however many years ago, we now finally see something with it because she magically transports herself through outer space into a ship.
You know what? I fully bought that. If Jedi can't survive being briefly exposed to the vacuum of space, what's the point of being a Jedi? Right? Come on.
At the same time, though, we never even knew she was a Jedi. Like, it was never
know.
demonstrated.
I would have thought she would have
Except
trained.
brief openings in the Force in the original trilogy.
Yeah, and I would have thought she would have trained or gone with Han and the rest of them, or done something to confront Kylo at some point if she was strong in the Force.
It's like out of nowhere, as if to show that that she has the Force, and also to do something that's cool, which I didn't think was cool.
Yeah, that is a bit of a problem, and I did think it was a little cool, although I thought it looked a little silly. She was flying through space like Superman, and the fact that I'm comparing it to that is a bad thing. I mean, seeing it on screen the first time was kind of cool, but like, it was also kind of like, what? It was mostly just surprising.
This goes into a larger thing of this really liberal use of Force powers in this movie.
In some ways, I didn't mind that, and in some ways, it was too much.
But it's true though that it was there, really like in your face, way more expansive than it ever was.
Yeah, apparently I'm not going to say the Force can suddenly do everything. It can do anything that psychic powers would normally be able to do in another kind of movie. I mean, what the Force can do is expanded. But also, yeah, the amount of times people use the Force is dramatically increased.
It feels like magic tricks for a movie.
Yeah, it feels like Disney wanted to blow its special effects budget. I mean,
I think they just want to put cool stuff in the movie.
I think it's important to keep in mind the original Star Wars trilogy.
I don't mean that in a good way. No, I'm serious.
I think you're right. I think they wanted to have a lot of really cool moments, and they did. But it's not really to the benefit of the story. I think in the original trilogy, if George Lucas had had more money, he probably would have put in more of these kind of Force magic tricks, especially in the first movie. On the other hand, it was better that he didn't.
Well, he had all the budget he needed for the second two films, and they turned out as they did.
The technology of those movies, though, was definitely not at the same level it is now. I think, especially given the stuff that the Force powers that have existed in like additional Star Wars lore, the expanded universe that was kind of authorized by Lucas, it's clear that the Jedi are meant to have more powers than what we saw in the original movies. On the other hand, he really doesn't bother showing a lot of it. So,
and also the specific powers themselves, like lifting rocks or cutting fruits, or that's not what it's about. It's about the fact that this thing can be accessed and used in whatever context. And I think that being so liberal with the usage of the Force in this one is a matter of it just showing cool stuff, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think it takes some of the class out of it.
Well, I don't know. I do think there were too many displays of power in this movie, probably. On the other hand, it's just more characters who have the Force than ever. I mean, they decided Leia had it, and could actually use it properly. Instead of just being a person who was vaguely able to telepathically communicate
with
and a few
Luke
other things.
Yeah, which is what it was in the original.
Yeah. Like she somehow harnessed and trained it at least a little. I'm not sure when or with who, or if Luke taught her a few tricks.
Or Kylo Ren.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Snoke.
And that's I'll say what I have to say about Snoke when we get to that point chronologically. Yeah, it's not a perfect moment. It's I don't know how I feel about it. I think having Leia fly around like that looks a bit silly, but I don't think that was like too much to have her be able to do. She was literally saving her own life at that point.
But put in that position by movie makers who put her in the position where she needs to then save her own life, right? Like,
that is true. That's a writing choice.
Right.
I kind of liked that, though, because it makes sense that the First Order are trying to kill them. And I liked the writing choices that surrounded it, that Kylo, you see him have a moment where he could have tried to kill his own mother, and he just doesn't. And
yeah, that was a good moment.
That was a good moment. It shows that there is still something redeemable in him, and then the people who are with him blow it up anyway and try to kill his mother.
Well, I mean, he certainly doesn't extend the same kindness to Han or Luke, so.
I mean, he had a really hard time killing Han, but because he loves him just like he loves his mother, and I don't think he could kill both parents. I think it was weighing on him that he'd killed his father. Snoke alludes to it later, that it had split him in two. But I think also it's worth noting that he hates Luke. Like, whatever he does to Luke, I don't even blame him, really.
Right, it's not
Luke,
even like family. Yeah.
Right. And also the way Luke treated him, well, in the end, their relationship went badly. But we'll get to that later.
You got it. All right. I'm gonna jump to that. Okay. I laughed when I saw the first recollection of when Luke tried to kill Kylo, and you see Luke looking. That look on his face just looked deranged, and did I burst out? I don't know, but that was really funny to see.
That was supposed to be, I think, was that when it was from Kylo's perspective?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's because that was supposed to be the way he saw it.
No, I know. I know why it was. I just thought it was hilarious.
Oh well, it's kind of funny. It is kind of funny. I mean, it's mostly funny because Luke thought it was a good idea to murder a kid. But like that's pretty messed up for the Jedi.
Well, I mean,
Master.
no, they get into all that later, but
yeah,
it was I don't know if it was a moment of weakness, and he wasn't about to do it.
That's true.
He drew the saber and put it away.
That's true.
Or it was about to.
Well, yeah.
At least from his version,
Yeah,
in which he didn't look deranged.
Yeah,
he looked remorseful.
I like that. That's self-serving memory on both sides.
Yeah.
Kylo is
life
saying,
lesson right there.
Yeah, that's the way memories usually work. Kylo is saying, "Well, this man was about to kill me, so naturally I drew upon my resources in the Force to smash the building around him and defend myself."
Yeah.
And
but
also,
that entire
I joined
thing,
the dark side.
That entire thing was really well done. Like the different views and how Kylo totally finally turned. And I love what Luke said. I saw a wounded boy or a scared boy.
Yeah.
In the last moment, and then it was
that was a really, really well thought out plot device and twist. That was like, if that had been the main twist of the movie and there weren't a dozen others, then it would have been it would have been a much better movie if that was like the main twist was no, like Kylo didn't betray me, I betrayed Kylo, or something to that effect.
And main criticism, there's too much stuff going on in this movie. Too much stuff, too many jokes, too many plot lines, too much action. The whole camel scene or whatever those things were. Let's jump to that then. Yeah, it's just superfluous. What is this thing with the casino?
There's a
Codemaster dude.
There's a bit where Finn and Rose is a new character who is going to be important, I guess. They go to an alien world to find a code breaker to help them hack in and get into the enemy ship so they can sneak on board and disable their ability to track the resistance. Which already sounds like a lot.
It's already complicated. And I went through the whole time not even knowing why they're going on the ship, why they're doing it. And the fact that it wasn't abundantly clear is a problem. Like, I'm paying attention, right? But someone had to explain to me the second time. You look at A New Hope, you look at Empire, you look at Jedi, like, it's impossible to get lost. You might not pick up on everything going on, but like, it's very clear what's going on.
That's true. These are movies that are immersed in deeper themes, that are trying to tell a larger story. And this is a movie that seems like it's trying to juggle all of these details and all of these events that the writers decided they needed to really cram into this runtime. And it doesn't entirely work.
There are too many characters and too many plot lines, and the film is the longest of any Star Wars film, clocking at about 150 minutes.
There's a whole, there's so much, even just the casino plot alone is pretty complicated if you think about it. This thing about Finn and Rose going to this planet, first of all, they're looking for this guy, and the right guy was in the casino. If they weren't going to find the right guy, which they don't, then I don't know why the camera even bothered really showing him. They should have just not found him at all to simplify it. And then it turns out that their ship was parked in the wrong place, so they get arrested for that. What? Don't you get a ticket or something?
Yeah.
So that was going, and somebody had even mentioned that a ship was parked in the wrong place earlier on, and I just didn't really think it was important. And then it turns out to be an important aspect of this plot.
At least they set it up. I mean, it was totally unnecessary. At least they set it up properly.
But why would you get arrested for parking in the wrong place?
So you don't find the code breaker in a completely unnecessary part of a movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so you
what's
instead
going on
run
with
into
this.
the other guy who...
Is also a code breaker, apparently. What good fortune to be placed in the same jail cell as someone who says he can also break a code.
And who can also break out of a jail cell.
And yeah, why was he there then? He could just leave any time.
What are we talking about?
Well, see, the more that I look at this plot line, the more it falls apart. What the heck was this? I think this is a Shaggy Dog story. Have you heard of that? It's like when you have a story that has no point at all because just the casino part, not the rest. The rest of the movie had a point. Well, because it's a story about a guy who's like looking for a shaggy dog and that he's lost, and then at the end somebody shoots the shaggy dog or something. And like, oh well, I guess that's over. I'm not gonna find the dog now. Well, where did this story come from? It's just that.
That's what happened. Do they get on the ship afterwards, or
the codebreaker gets them onto the ship, but it was actually a trap because he was selling them out to the First Order, who were bribing him with a huge amount of money or something. They gave him crates of something. Why?
Too many characters. We've got Rose. We've got the codebreaker. We've got the purple-haired leader of the Resistance. We've got all these like minor sort of characters who get propped up enough that. Like they're significant enough, but you don't really know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's okay, I'm always going to go back to the originals, right? Original movie, Obi-Wan, Luke, Leia, Solo, droids, Vader, Tarkin.
Wow, that's like eight real characters.
Eight real characters who are major in the entire thing.
The other
Anyone
movie,
else like that Force commander who got Force choked.
They
by
basically
Vader,
don't have names.
They don't have names. You don't see them more than for a couple of scenes. Right? And you don't start getting attached to some character that you have no idea, who they are.
Yeah. And in this movie, we were expected to get attached to or interested in Admiral Holdo.
Who's... Oh, yeah.
She's the purple-haired one.
Yeah.
General Leia, Poe, Finn, Rose, Rey, Kylo, Snoke, Hux, the Codebreaker,
Luke.
There's so many characters, I lost one.
You lost the main one.
Oh no. He used to be the protagonist. Now he's an afterthought. At least he was for a minute for me. I feel bad about that. Oh my god. This is a problem. And what's more, what was the point of this plot that involved Finn and Rose getting on the other ship at all?
There's no point. That's what I'm saying. It's too complicated.
Why would the First Order even pay for them? Why wouldn't they just say, okay, we'll give you like $10. You keep them out of here.
Then of course, we'll
blow up the ship.
They get saved by Admiral. What's her name?
Admiral Holdo.
Admiral Holdo.
Yeah, her sacrifice.
Right. Which is a beautiful scene.
It was awesome.
It
was gorgeous.
The sound goes away and everything gets still but
it raises a lot of questions.
How does it why didn't it destroy the ship? How come somehow Finn and Rose had these things on there were about to get killed and then somehow what happened to those guys?
Hold on, I have another question, and this for me is a little more pressing. Why aren't all of our weapons firing light speed projectiles? If you can just use that way, why aren't we using light speed for a lot more military applications in Star Wars if it can be used so in such a way?
Well, I think that's getting too technical, but even from a story standpoint.
Well, I mean, let's just say that the Resistance had a few more ships. Can the TIE fighters go, or not TIE fighters, the X-Wings, can they go light speed? Because if so, we could just destroy the entire First Order with 5 of those. I mean, I know that's a little technical, but it seems like it opens up a whole string of possibilities that are would really kind of break the functioning of the Star Wars universe, I guess.
Well, we've got to get to Snoke now.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I thought that the whole thing was horrible.
Well, my biggest problem with Snoke Well, besides what you've already mentioned, is that
That was horrible?
Well, no, that the Force is used too casually when Snoke is around. He just does magic tricks all the time. He shoots Kylo with lightning, but only for a second, so you can tell he's not really mad at him. He's just sort of like reminding him who's boss or something. And he uses the Force for silly, ridiculous things. Like, he takes Rey's lightsaber away from her, swings it around the room in a circle, hits her in the back of the head with it. What was that?
That's, I think, when she tried to summon it, just so you know, is him reasserting power.
That's a good point.
So it is not as silly as you said, but it's still...
That's a good point.
It's still... like, here's the thing.
It was funny.
I compare to the originals
was
a lot, and,
slapstick.
comparison is not, good. But here's the thing. The originals got it right, right? Like, they got it right. So you have the Emperor, right? The Emperor would never do that.
No.
Like, it's just... He's like, this is just comical.
He's just playing. Like, it's just, he's literally treating the other characters like toys. And, well, actually, that could have been done well if it was playing with the other characters in a good way.
Yeah, the lightsaber thing wasn't a big deal. I mean, like, it is. It's fine.
Okay, my other big problem with him, my biggest problem with him, and this is going to sound like a minor gripe, is the costuming. Because Snoke, I think I said this in the non-spoiler review, he's dressed in a ridiculous outfit. He's wearing a sparkly golden bathrobe. I'm going to keep calling it that until someone says it has some kind of an official name. The robe of supreme leadership. Doubtless, Supreme Leader Kylo will be wearing it in the next movie. What? It's the robe of supreme leadership. Doubtless, he's going to have one made for him. It's the latest style. What were they thinking? Couldn't he just wear a black robe? I mean, did he have to?
I never noticed the outfit, but
Okay.
I will say so Snoke's dialogue was horrible. So
Yeah. It wasn't great.
It's cartoony. So for example, Rey comes up into his face because he's like tantalizing her with the Force, and he says something to her, and she says, "No," and he says, "Yes." Like, okay, so let me compare it to the Emperor disagreeing with Luke. Luke says, "Your overconfidence is your weakness." Instead of the Emperor saying, "No, it's not." What does he say, Douglas?
Your faith in your friends is yours. Which is a wonderful, incredibly quotable line. Does Snoke have any quotable lines in this movie, Jay?
Well, he quotes the Emperor by calling her a young fool. He also just like the Emperor did to Luke, shows Rey like video or something of the Resistance ships getting destroyed.
Yeah, that was
like I know he grew up watching Return of the Jedi, like just like I did. So
I'm just
like,
picturing.
This is how you play Emperor character.
I want you to know, I'm just picturing little baby Snoke or little kid Snoke. I want to be just like him when I grow up. Oh.
But I don't like wearing black robes.
No, I'll be much more fashionable. Gold is the new black. Yeah, it's.
So okay,
I actually liked Snoke in a lot of ways. Like, I don't entirely agree that he was horrible. I think that Snoke's persona still works. And I think that it works sort of as an arrogant, over the top, brash. He's a jerk, you know. It works on kind of that level, but he never comes off, I must admit. He's always in the shadow of the Emperor, and he can never be as sinister as the Emperor. And if he was written better, he could be. And I guess that's the big problem.
Yes, and that's the shame of it. And
he didn't even have to use his Force powers like he did.
And that's the thing,
movie.
the superfluous use of Force powers in his case especially just make me lose respect.
I mean, the fact that he used Force lightning for like half a second on screen just made me think, oh, well, I guess they wanted to show us he could use Force lightning.
And as soon as you start thinking that, you know, and here's the thing with the Emperor, right? Mm-hmm. He before you see him use lightning, he's just this guy who just, you can tell he's the Emperor, first of all, because Vader bows to him. Mm-hmm. He commands Vader. And even just in his attitude, right? He just talks. The whole movie, all he does is just talk.
Yeah.
Until he does Force lightning. And you're like, what is that? But it works.
It works so well because his talking is a threat. Like, I felt like it was a legitimate threat to Luke and the rebels, just him talking. Just him giving orders or trying to seduce Luke to the dark side. Like, he's a legitimate threat just sitting in a chair and talking. He doesn't have to use the Force. He's persuasive. He's intelligent. He's menacing.
He has gravitas, which Snoke does not have.
Yeah. I mean, and all of the powers that we think he has at first before we see any of the Force lightning, like, it's all just implied. It's mental. He has foreseen what's going to happen. And he's actually mostly accurate, unlike Snoke. Snoke's prediction of the future.
Yeah, and here's the... Okay. The whole Snoke thing was not totally horrible. It's just mostly horrible. So
I don't even think it's... Well, I do think that they kind of wasted the character. But I don't think it's mostly horrible. I think it's like almost half and half, like a little more good than bad, because I think Snoke was an entertaining villain. He's just not lasting in the way the Emperor is. He's going to be a throwaway bad guy, which I
didn't think. I thought he was the new Emperor.
Yeah, but he's apparently the Disc 1 final boss. Put in Disc 2 and you'll be facing adult Kylo with
It's like in 24.
Oh, yeah.
In 24, they the first 12 episodes, there's one guy. He gets taken out, then his boss is the real bad guy for the next 12.
That's a good point. I haven't watched as much 24 as you, but that sounds about right.
Speaking of the Snoke bad dialogue, he says, he starts saying this stuff like, I have seen your every intention. I know your mind, to Kylo. And he's like...
I thought he was talking to Rey.
No, he says, he's telling him to kill Rey, and he says, "I've seen your every intention, all this stuff, and where there was courage, it was where there was weakness. Conflict. Now there is strength. Where there was doubt, now there is resolve. Where there was light, now there is dark." Stuff like that. And like, where are you getting all this from? He looks totally. He looks exactly the same as when he walked in. He's totally conflicted.
Most of that stuff was right. That was a good emotional read on Kylo. Like Kylo's face was showing one thing, but he already knew what he was going to do, clearly. Like, at that moment that Snoke was talking.
That is true, but like, why is Snoke saying, I know your mind? Like, he's just wrong.
He knew Kylo's emotional state. He was right. He was right that where there was weakness, now there's strength. He's strong enough to kill his master. Where there was doubt, now there is resolve. He has made his decision to kill his master and assume his mantle. I mean, like, all of it was right, except for that the true enemy.
So that was the real crux of the whole thing. Like that was written, your true enemy, right? And then it goes, the saber goes off on him, right? Yeah, that is not what a person would actually say. They just say, now fulfill your destiny, and kill her, or as the Emperor would say, fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side.
That's some rich dialogue right there. That's so much thematic weight. And I guess I feel like the problem is, or one of the problems is, that this just feels like it comes just like, not out of left field, but it's a little rushed, isn't it? Isn't the confrontation with somebody who was supposed to be the main bad guy a little early? I mean, if we wanted to have Kylo kill him, which he does in this scene, that's fine, but, well, isn't it a little early for Rey to face Snoke? Isn't it a little early for...
Rey to even face Kylo, also.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a problem in the last movie, but, yeah, it does go too fast, and, I mean... I guess it was kind of a necessary... No, I can't even say I thought it was a necessary change. I mean, I guess it was necessary if they really were desperate to break the mold of the previous Star Wars movies, because this is radically different. Like, at this point, this movie by this point has switched into being some other kind of movie entirely. I mean, I don't even know what to compare it to anymore.
Well, I will say, too... one more example of bad dialogue, and I think I should be done with bad dialogue, but at the end...
It doesn't have that much.
At the end, that is true, it doesn't have that much, but it has enough.
I mean, Snoke doesn't have that much dialogue, period.
So at the end, when Leia says, All hope is gone. The spark is lost. Oh my God, Luke, you just walked into the frame right after I said this. Like, it's too much of, and there wasn't
Too much of a jump.
It's too much of, it's just written just to contrast what happens right after. Another example.
And also, it doesn't make sense for Leia's character, now that you're getting to that, but...
Yeah, she had no reason to actually say that. Like, they're fighting a battle. Leia's tough. We know
Leia's
this.
really tough.
And then, and it's not even like they lost anything. Like,
No.
like, and she
They're
just
just
says
trapped.
it just to make the contrast with this Luke appearance. There actually is more battle. I'm not going to talk about it now.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the ending part where this happens later. Like I want to go more into that a little bit, because now you mentioned something I consider to be a fault in the movie, or a fault in their dialogue for Leia anyway. But where were we? Where do we go now? After Snoke dies, he was came down with a bad case of lightsaber. His guards all, instead of bowing to Kylo, which is kind of what I thought they would do after Kylo killed the Supreme Leader, there's a Sith thing called the Rule of Two, which is usually that the apprentice can kill the master and take their place. And it's just kind of a normal thing. Maybe since they're not officially Sith, it's not the same. But instead of bowing to Kylo, which is one reaction they could have had, we get a pretty cool fight scene, in my opinion, between Kylo Ren and Rey on the one hand, and the Emperor, or Snoke's
red-clad guards.
Yes, Snoke's Imperial Guards.
No, Snoke's First Orderer guards.
I think there's an official name for them. I think they're the Praetorian Guards, because it's like a Roman type thing, and the First Order is kind of a mix of a bunch of different things. And the guards who are named, I think, Praetorian Guards after Rome are also dressed like samurai, which is another thing they're copying from the originals. They're copying kind of the costuming of Darth Vader with that. But they're pretty awesome, in my opinion, and they seem to, some of them seem to die a little too easily.
Did you have any doubt that they would, didn't you know they were all going to get killed?
Well, they were literally faceless guards.
Right.
They had no.
They're as good as
we never
stormtroopers.
saw them on screen.
So
It'd be funny if those are some celebrity cameos, actually, because those are awesome moments, I think. But yeah, there was no doubt that our heroes, Kylo and Rey, were going to get out of that. Oh man, we haven't even discussed the relationship between Kylo and Rey.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
I
thought so
liked
too.
it. I liked it.
Definitely for me, the high point of the movie is their relationship.
It was mystical. It was mysterious, but you knew what was going on. It was intriguing.
It was intriguing. And I've never been the person who says what Star Wars needs more of is love triangles, but this, potential, the relationship.
You never say that, Douglas?
I don't think I do, because that would be a pretty specific, odd thing for me to say. The first movies had Leia, Han, and Luke that seemed like sort of a love triangle until we find out that, he's actually her brother. But this movie has set up two in one movie successfully.
Which are who?
There's Kylo, Rey, and Finn, which is because we all assumed Finn and Rey might be together based on the last movie. At least most of the people online that I've seen talking about it have assumed, and I assumed, that Finn and Rey wanted to be together, probably. They could have been platonic. They left it really ambiguous in the last movie. But it felt like a love triangle. And then they set up another love triangle, which is that Rey seemed kind of interested in Finn later, but Finn might be interested in Rose now.
Oh wow! Well, Finn and Rey didn't talk once in this film, so they pretty much did.
They didn't. They might have spoken once.
I didn't see the triangle.
It might have happened once. It was that Finn kept it was them both caring about each other off screen without each other being present. They both mention each other to other people.
Okay.
And they are the only people who the other mentions who aren't actually there, I feel like.
Yeah.
So that is something significant. They do care about each other more than they care about other members of the Resistance. But I guess that's over now, because we're now supposed to... Oh, and they set up a third love triangle. I don't know if you noticed or agree with this, but they introduce Rey and Poe at the end, and it seemed like there might, I don't
Oh,
know.
there's a spark there.
Yeah.
I didn't see it that way, but it's possible.
So now Rey is possibly in 3 different love triangles.
So Finn, Poe, and Kylo. Who's the third one? like
Well, Finn, Poe. Well, there's Finn, Rey, and Rose. That's a love triangle. There was Finn, Rey, and Kylo, and now there's Rey, Kylo, and Poe. So they got rid of the first love triangle.
let's see. Kylo's one of them.
Oh yeah, Kylo's definitely still in the running for this. He could end up with Rey. I could totally see.
I'm waiting for the moment we find out they're related.
Oh, no.
It's happened before.
Oh,
it's happened before.
Oh, no, please. I was hoping. I mean, there's a moment in the movie when Kylo tells Rey, "I've seen who your real parents are, and they're nobody." And I don't know whether or not to believe him on that, but I do. Fundamentally, I think he's probably telling her the truth. And
Well, he doesn't seem to be a liar.
no, he doesn't. He never lied in the entire movie. In fact, when Rey called him a monster, he said, "Yes, I am." But did you ask Luke what he did? Basically, like, yes, I am, but think about who you're comparing me to. So I don't think he's a liar, and I think to him, Rey's parents are nobody. That doesn't mean they really are, but I do think that means they're not somebody important like Obi-Wan or Luke or Leia. And thus, they can't necessarily be related, although I don't know how I feel about that, because I wanted her to be either a Skywalker or a Kenobi, or
I didn't
in
think
a
of
twist.
It being a Kenobi. Interesting.
I thought of either she could be maybe Kenobi's daughter secretly that he had just before he died, because otherwise her age makes no sense, or she could be the Emperor's daughter. And the reason she was abandoned is because the Emperor's supporters abandoned her. And like her memory is just the 2 people who were supposed to be taking care of her. It's not really her parents. That's something I thought. And that's, I guess, still possible if she would have misremembered that. And the Emperor, I mean, he's a powerful, evil, sleazy man. Maybe he had some mistresses and stuff on the side that we didn't know about. I could totally have seen it, and it would have been a great surprise to the audience, I think, if Kylo had said, "Your father was the Emperor, so you're destined to be the greatest dark side user of them all," or something sinister like that. And because this whole movie, I was wondering, well, not the whole movie, at a certain point they telegraphed what was going to happen. For a while I was wondering if Rey might turn herself to the dark side.
I didn't think about that for a second.
I mean, I thought about it after the first movie.
There's no indication she would have. There's no anger in her. She's just purely like loyal and good.
I mean, she is kind of just purely loyal and good, but like dark side characters can have positive traits too. Anakin seemed like a good person when he was a kid, and then he just seemed like a whiny teenager, and then he turned into Darth Vader.
Well, Anakin was just really arrogant. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Well, Rey's abilities could have made her arrogant. That would be some character development.
But is she arrogant?
No, she's not arrogant. She is a perfect person without any flaws
That's
whatsoever.
That's why, or at least that appearance is why, there's no question about her turning.
I mean, she could be...
And there's nothing compelling enough to make her turn. So, for example, Luke, with his flaws, right? He was a more complex character in a way, because...
Oh, he's way more complex than Rey. He was more complex back then. He's more complex now.
In Empire, like, he keeps on, going forward with fear, right? Even in Jedi, once he's fully mature, it took the Emperor and Vader's continual prodding, killing his friends, or at least showing him that they are, threatening his sister, all this stuff to bring out that rage in him, which he then ended up transcending. But that made it very interesting, the complexity.
I think if Kylo had said the right combination of words, personally, I would have believed her going with him. That doesn't mean she turns to the dark side immediately. That means she's going to see how it works out with Kylo. Especially because there's this mutual attraction that's pretty obvious. Or at least
it might not be romantic attraction. It's a connection of some sort.
She was embarrassed when, this is kind of a silly moment, she was embarrassed when she has like a vision of him and he's talking to her and he's not wearing a shirt. And she says, "Could you maybe put a towel on or something?" And I was trying to do her accent, and obviously that was bad. She seems like really flustered in a way that would only make sense if she was attracted to him, and then right after that they have this moment of holding hands and looking into each other's eyes, which freaks Luke out, and I don't think that was just because she's talking to someone on the dark side.
That's a good point, yeah.
I felt that there was supposed to be a romantic connection. Or
Yeah,
a possibility.
you definitely got a point there. I mean, time will tell. We'll see about 9.
Well, after this, I think Kylo might be too much of a bad boy for her. I mean, like, Rey is a character without flaws, and thus she can't make the mistake of getting with someone who's bad. Like that, she's a character who fundamentally doesn't have any flaws except for that she was once in this movie too confident in her abilities when she thought she could turn Kylo.
Yeah, it would be good if she had more dimension, that's for sure.
I mean, I like that they gave her like kind of a failure there, and she had a total blind spot for Kylo. That was actually a really good moment for her because she actually made a mistake. And it would have been crazy because basically if she had been successful in that, she actually would have won the war in the second movie. Because without Kylo, the First Order is nothing, and the Resistance wins. Because, the power to destroy a planet is nothing in comparison with the power of the Force. So unless the Knights of Ren, who have never been on screen, are going to take over and turn out to be really powerful Force users who can defeat Kylo, which maybe they are, unless that happens, there's no way that him turning would allow for any threat to the Resistance. Let's talk about the kind of Force-shaped elephant in the room, Luke.
Okay.
Luke on his island on his special little planet, where the first temple of the Jedi apparently was. And
Okay, I've seen the movie twice and I didn't pick up on that.
I mean, I'm not even sure it was mentioned in the movie, but he did mention their ancient Jedi tomes, and it was mentioned somewhere, like, I read somewhere after the Force Awakens, that this was where he was, on the island where the first Jedi temple ever was. And that's why there are caretakers, that's why they have the ancient Jedi texts, that's why Luke decided to, I guess, seek some kind of a spiritual retreat there. I don't know. I mean, the setting is fine. It could be whatever setting, as long as it's not a swamp and they're not directly ripping off Dagobah. So I'm happy with that. Or if he had gone to Dagobah, that would have also been fine, as long as they had called it Dagobah. But I thought the setting was fine.
It was a beautiful island, too.
Oh, yeah, it looks great. I mean, and I enjoyed watching Luke and, hearing him. I'm not sure they did everything with him they could, but...
What do you mean?
I mean, he dies. He's only in the movie for whatever amount of screen time he got, and now he's dead.
Well, I mean, he was in the movie a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he might have been in more than Rey, possibly. Possibly.
I don't think that's possible, but it could be kind of close. I mean, but Rey has a bunch of scenes that, well, actually, he might have been in it more than Rey.
He was in it a lot, for sure.
He was in scenes where Rey wasn't.
Right.
And just like Rey was in a couple of scenes that he wasn't, but it might not have been as many.
So, I thought Luke... Now, granted, I disagree with the whole character choice of him being this angry, like Jedi master. Aren't they supposed to be like past anger and being downtrodden? Anyway, they made the character choice, and
he's just depressed or something.
I think it's good that he was able to find peace, though, at the end by doing what he could to help fuel the resistance. And his final lines to Kylo Ren were just, I mean, they were inspiring about how the rebellion is just begun. And something, the spark of the rebellion, whatever.
Yeah.
And then backed by, a couple of minutes later, you see the kids who were from earlier in the movie.
That they're showing.
This one kid, I don't know if I noticed the second time, the kid who has the ring at the end, he actually, he's playing with the broom the way Rey used to play with her stick, and he actually force brings the broom to his hand.
Yeah.
He doesn't grab it. It's right here. It's like a few feet. He's forced.
I kind of like that too. They're showing that the Force is awakening, and it's a bigger thing than just Rey.
Yes, and yes.
It's broader. It's not, so we can't just say that, some people have said that she was a Mary Sue character,
What's that?
It's when somebody is just
It's like crazy powerful or something, or
written so that they are flawless and never fail. And this movie kind of changes that. I mean,
so?
because she's still an excellent character, excellent at everything she does, basically. And her one mistake in the movie was being slightly overconfident in one scene, but it didn't really. When she thinks she can convert Kylo to the good side again. That was her one mistake, really, in the movie. But it also, it showed that maybe there's actually a sporadic amount of Force talent, and maybe some really Force talented people who are even more talented than Rey, just scattered all over the galaxy, perhaps not even being trained by anyone because there's no Jedi Order to train them.
Well, I mean, if there's one Luke and one Rey, why can't there be a million?
I do wonder that, except for, I feel like this conflicts with the prequels now. Because in the prequels, basically the Jedi Order had systematically, through the 1,000 generations or 1,000 years, depending on which version you go with, of the Republic.
Well, Obi-Wan says 1,000 generations in the original.
Yeah, but in the prequels they say something about 1,000 years of democracy, which is a conflict that other people have noted. If either way, they've set up this systematic approach where they have any Force-sensitive children sent directly to them from anywhere that's part of the Republic, essentially, to the extent possible. But still, none of the Jedi they train really seem to me to be as naturally gifted as Rey. We've never seen anyone show the capacity to do the things she did in The Force Awakens without training. And that was why it seemed to a lot of people that she was some kind of Mary Sue, because she picked up on the most powerful thing in her setting with no training, with no prep time, with nothing that should have helped her. She had no knowledge about the Force except for legends. She'd never tried to use it before, as far as we know.
Well, the defense of it working like that with her is that, in some larger sense, she does all it had to do was awaken itself within her, and then use her for its purposes. So it's not a matter of her prior knowledge and so on through studying and so on. I'm not advocating for that. It could be bad writing. She could be Mary Sue, but it's
I don't
also
entirely buy it. I don't think I buy that, because she's more skilled than Luke was after using the Force to destroy the Death Star. And Luke should have some level of skill after that, if the Force just awakens.
And more importantly, he got training from Yoda.
Well, he was less skilled than her between getting training from Yoda and blowing up the Death Star the first time. So that's what I meant. For him, he needed the training. For her, she has received no training.
Right, at all. Yeah,
Luke gave her a lesson. The lesson was, the Force is overrated. You don't want to become a Jedi, kid. Don't be like me. Which was pretty funny, but not actually teaching her anything. So it doesn't really solve the problem. But if you say that there's a broader trend of the Force awakening in the galaxy suddenly, I guess they can kind of solve that. Because it kind of explains why, kids in the Jedi Academy under the Jedi Order that existed a long time ago didn't seem to be just randomly gaining these abilities. They seemed to require real training and instruction before they could use them. And that's why even a large group of kids really ought to be able to defeat stormtroopers if they're armed with the Force. Stormtroopers in every version kind of suck. And the reason why the massacre at the Jedi Temple goes off well isn't because Anakin does it all by himself. It's because the stormtroopers did most of the work, and Anakin, was there to direct them, was there to kill the actual formidable Jedi. If there's the novelization explains that he killed the Jedi Masters who were still there, the very few of them that were there, that was off screen for some reason. So I feel as though I don't know. There seems to be some disparities in the skill levels that people naturally have. I'm just going to chalk it up to errors or.
Well, so all that being said, when it comes to the larger awakening of the Force, I think it's a beautiful thing. You really don't know
it's magical. Hopefully,
what's out there until people show you what they've got. So if these kids did not get inspired by the Force by seeing the Millennium Falcon blast off at the end, maybe the Force, we wouldn't know that the Force is latent within them. They might not know it either. So I think that ending was really fantastic, and it puts down the old guard. Like, all the characters from the originals are dead now, right? Luke and the Emperor, Vader and the Emperor died. Yeah. Han died. Luke died. Carrie Fisher will not be in the next movie for Leia because the actress is dead.
Right.
So the old guard is actually completely gone now.
Except for the returns as Force ghosts.
Right.
But they're all dead. I guess that's a good thing because we need to pass the torch to the next generation. Speaking of Force ghosts, I wanted us to discuss the return of Master Yoda. How did you feel about that?
I liked it. I liked the advice that he gave. I don't like that he forced lightning destroy the tree. Another cheap Force trick. But yeah, it was fine. It was good. Again, too much stuff going on in the movie. They could have admitted that, but it was in it. It worked. I liked it.
I liked it a lot. I do think the Force lightning thing is a bit, or the Force attract lightning during a storm thing is a little bit much, but mostly because now we know the Force ghosts can just influence the physical world as much as they want. And given that...
Unless it was just bad writing.
I think that is, by definition, bad writing, giving them that power. Because if they have that power, then they have more than just the power to influence people. They're more powerful than you and I could possibly imagine.
Exactly.
Really, though, seriously, if Yoda could do that, he could kill the Emperor anytime. He could just be like Force choking him.
Medicine. Lightning. Yeah.
He could be Force choking him or crushing him under boulders, and the Emperor would just be trying to shoot lightning at nothing.
Yeah, void. So, again, without getting into technicals, because it's going to get ridiculous. But it is a bit, yeah.
This movie, you said overusing the Force. This movie, in overusing the Force so much, ends up crossing a bunch of lines that Lucas has deliberately left really vaguely defined in the past that kind of show where maybe the limits of the Force are supposed to be. The Force can't do certain things. I think we know that. The Force can't really resurrect the dead, or Obi-Wan would come back. The Force can't really resurrect the dead, or maybe Yoda would help Luke to defeat the Emperor, or something. The Force can't resurrect the dead, or maybe Anakin could live a second life as a good man.
Right, so, again...
There are things it can't do.
They're bound. I get what you're saying, yeah.
And I feel like this was kind of an implicit boundary. That
was broken, yeah.
Yeah, that the Force ghosts can't influence the world that way. But, I don't know. I know they're not going to explain that, because there's not going to be a good explanation. They'll have to just ignore it. But that's fine. It didn't bother me a lot at the time. It's mostly bothering me because you just brought it up, and I remembered that I thought it was kind of funny.
So why'd you like the Yoda scene?
Oh, they brought back his original voice actor. They used an actual puppet. It felt so real. It felt so Yoda. He actually dispensed a little bit of wisdom. He spoke the normal Yoda way. I wanted more of him. Mm-hmm. I wanted him to be there when Rey was there. I wanted him to potentially advise Rey, but I guess that shouldn't happen, and that can never happen now, because she's never even met him, and it doesn't make sense that Force ghosts would be appearing to people who have never met them. At least I hope they're not going to do that. That'd be an overuse. I think if Rey is to be advised by anyone, hopefully Ghost Luke will appear and help her.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I will say, I want to finish with I've said a lot of negative stuff. I want to finish with that and then get into the positive. So I will just say, as far as the movie goes, bad jokes need to go. And I'm saying this because I care about Star Wars. I want these to be great movies, and I'm resigned to I think Empire will never be topped.
I think you're right.
The way that I see things going now. And I want them to make good movies. They have good ideas. The last Episode 7, Rogue One, and this well, episode 7 didn't have any original ideas, but I mean, not many at least.
No, that's true.
But they're, they've got some good stuff going, and they can make them much better by mostly just omitting stuff. Stop trying to make it fast paced.
Bigger.
Stop trying to make it better, bigger, with the Star Killer base way bigger and killing 5 planets instead of 1, right? Like, stop trying so hard in these ways, and instead allow things to flow. Let instincts create the film in less of this contrived sort of way. And I think that if the people making the movies do that, that will help bring back the feel, because what's been lost is the feel. I don't respect it as a serious art form as I did before with the originals. I think they're really good movies, but there's too much stuff, bad jokes, really complicated plot lines, and other stuff we've talked about that just, they really do it in for me.
What you said
It's
about
enjoyable, but it's not. It can never hold the place in my heart that the other ones have, and that's not nostalgia talking. That's speaking about quality of impact, which is based on the quality of the art.
Oh yeah, if nostalgia would really change our impressions that much, we could be really fond of the prequels because they were made when we were kids.
Yeah.
Those are our Star Wars movies for our generation.
Yeah, I saw each one of those in the theaters.
That actually makes me jealous of my sister and her generation, because their Star Wars movies are at least pretty good. I mean, they're not as good as the originals, but they are pretty good.
I'm a prequel fan, by the way.
What?
I'm a prequel fan. But...
Oh, I mean, I like the story. I just think that the acting... we can discuss the prequels some other time, maybe. But I liked what you said about how these movies aren't... they aren't aspiring essentially to the level of art in the same way that the earlier ones did.
Correct.
They're not trying to tell a timeless story.
Right.
They're trying to tell a story that will sell a lot of toys and a lot of tickets right now. And I think that's because it's Disney.
Well, I don't know if it's just the Disney thing. I mean, it could be, but it could just be that even the prequels were made by Lucas, right? But they didn't match up to the originals. For whatever reasons, like, things just keep on getting messed up.
Well, I guess the way I look at it, and I'm as I said, I'm a fan of the story of the prequels, not of the actual acting and dialogue so much. But I think when you try to make art and you're serious about it, you take risks. And the kind of risks that are required to make good art are the kind of risks that lead to the kind of failures that the prequels were. Whereas, because the prequels were failures in a sense. They did not hit the mark of how good Lucas wanted them to be at all. They didn't even come close. Lucas, I think, thought that with just trusting his own instincts and his own expertise, he could make something that would be as good as the original Star Wars trilogy.
Well, the goal is always to do as well as and top the previous. So
yeah, of course.
In that sense, they were failures for sure, in a way.
Yeah, but I think that's because he was being artistic. I don't think he could have equaled the other Star Wars movies, but I think he could have done better than this if he had actually tried to take fewer risks artistically, to experiment less. Yes.
Okay.
If he had tried to experiment less and do less original stuff with the prequels, because the prequels are really different from the original trilogy, more so than obviously The Force Awakens, maybe not as much so as this movie, but if he had tried to make it less original, less artistic, less different, then he probably would have come up with better movies. And he also probably would have allowed other people to exert more creative influence over him, because he would have made a project by committee, which is how Disney makes their movies, more or less. And I feel like there's a bad case of that going on here. A movie that was made to cater to specific priorities set down by corporate executives. And I'm not like an anti-corporate person at all. I'm very capitalist, but I do think Disney is trying to be too responsive to audience needs and criticisms from critics in making their movies. They're not allowing anyone to make something according to an artistic vision. And in fact, if someone like made a movie badly, they just wouldn't assign them to make a movie again.
Well, think of this, like the chicken things that Chewbacca like didn't eat, and then that was hanging out with him in the Falcon. That's totally this a child, sort of thing. And I will say the best movie of the saga so far, which is Empire, is the least kid friendly. Now, I mean, a kid can watch it and enjoy it, but it's not. There's nothing catered to kids there. It's simple, quality art, and a kid watches like, oh yeah, Han Solo's escaping TIE fighters. That's awesome, and all this stuff. But it's not catered. And I watched it as a kid. I enjoyed it, right? But
Yeah, me too.
There's no. It's not catered with like cuddly stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's not really what I meant as far as the Disney influence. I meant that they're very responsive to things they think will make the movie sell more tickets, and not that will necessarily make it a better or more lasting product.
Here,
Like,
go ahead.
my example was going to be that there were a lot of complaints that the last movie was too much like the original trilogy, right? And obviously that's for good reason. It was very much like A New Hope. And then this movie tried to be nothing like any other Star Wars movie as a direct, I think, response to that. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good way to go either.
Well, and that's also assuming what you're saying is that they responded like that, assuming that's correct. We don't know what the truth is behind the scenes. But
We never will.
But I will say that when it comes to making so Star Wars came out 40 years ago.
Yes.
Empire came out 37. Jedi came out 34 years ago. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I mean, in 100 years from their initial dates, people are going to watch them. I don't think the same will be said about these current movies. Certainly not in the same amount, because when it comes to art, that's already this popular, that has the potential to be so impacting, you cannot mess around with taking shortcuts. Lucas did that in Jedi and Return of the Jedi with his Ewoks and whatever, and Jedi on the whole is a great film, but it's flawed, and that's why it doesn't stack up in anyone's book to the first two films, because he made that mistake once.
Certainly not the second one.
Right. And so what I'm saying is, I really just hope that they just stick to the art and don't make it about short-term things, because these things, I mean, Star Wars has changed my life. Like, why are we talking about it this much? Right? Like
Because it's magical.
It's important to me, right? It's magical to me, and I don't like seeing when things like that are done badly with stuff that's so easy to avoid, like excessive plot, like bad jokes.
It's a rich story usually.
Like the films are elegant, they're classy, they're all sorts of things that are just
Han
inspired.
Solo, like the character of Han. Just take the character of Han Solo by himself. Han Solo is a character who seemingly could teach you everything you need to know about being a man. Princess Leia is a character who seemingly could teach you all the most important things about being a woman. These characters are people, they're real people. They feel like real people in the context of the movie. And they're inspiring, and their struggles feel weighty, and you're really pulling for them to get through. And also, in the case of Han, who has some, doubts at certain points, especially in the first movie, you're hoping he'll get over those and do the right thing. And, you root for the characters in these new movies. They're the protagonists. But there's no real sense that you can look at your own personal growth and compare it to them or anything.
And the sense of investment is less, I'd say, in the new protagonist. I like him, but the same care is not there as it was for the original. And part of that has to do with the movie itself.
Yes.
If the movie itself didn't have them make bad jokes, and if the movie itself were stronger, the characters themselves, even if they changed nothing about the characters, we'd care about them more.
I agree. Although I would also say that the only strong characters in these movies are Kylo, Rey, and the three main characters that were already in the original trilogy. I don't think Finn is a very strong character. I think Poe was only made really a character in this movie.
Yeah, he was pretty much not in the last one much.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm not sure why they decided to
Poe's
make
a good character. He's charming and stuff. He's like the
yeah.
Han Solo of this one. But
it's because Oscar Isaac is charming. I mean, they also gave him good dialogue to show it, but like if you've seen him, I watched him in another series, a mini series that was on HBO called Show Me a Hero. He's really good at playing all different kinds of characters. He was in Ex Machina too. Have you seen that? Well, either of those things, Oscar Isaac is a really impressive actor. A lot of range and
Yeah. So can we get on to positives?
yeah.
So positives. This is the shorter part of the review, but that's because we've been talking a lot about negative. It's a great movie on the whole.
I said a few positive things.
Yeah, I mean, I've been more negative, but yeah, I mean, like the the Rey and Kylo Ren connection is fantastic. The show off between Kylo and Luke is fantastic. The ending with Luke's final lines, and then that Jedi kid with his ring is inspiring. Rey finally moving the rocks, that's inspiring when they need it the most. Yeah, I mean, I on the whole, I thought it was a pretty great movie.
I agree. I mean, it's definitely one of the better-ish Star Wars movies. I don't know, it's hard to know where it'll fall on the rankings for me now, but I did enjoy it. The fights were great, the action was great, it was an exciting movie. The dialogue was really mixed, but some of it was pretty good. Some of it felt wise. I really loved seeing Yoda again. I really enjoyed.
Dialogue was good on the whole.
Yeah,
it was good. The dialogue was good on the whole. I mean, there were just some parts of it that weren't good.
Well, I mean, I guess sometimes the dialogue was also in service of story stuff that didn't make sense, and that's also something that's a complaint in my mind.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, every part of the movie taken separately is entertaining, I think. Every part of it, pretty much. And it's just like some of it felt like a bit much, all stacked up together.
Right.
The fights, I already mentioned the fights, but the fights were cool. The music was good.
Music was very good, actually. Way better than the last movie's music.
I agree.
I mean, there's a lot of blending of the original trilogy music, like the beginning scene. Right after the opening credits is the exact same as A New Hope. And another New Hope music is when the Millennium Falcon is going through this red stuff at the end. It goes dun 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 dun. Right, that was nice, but they blended everything together well. Music was great. I think the flow of the movie was really good too. Even though I didn't understand what was going on, I still enjoyed watching it.
I felt like I understood what was going on, and I enjoyed watching it. So it was kind of a bonus.
Yeah. But, visuals, of course, fantastic. Kylo Ren, respectability level way, way high compared to before. I like him now. I'm glad he's here now. He still throws tantrums, but they're believable, and they're not really excessive.
I liked him before too, to be honest. I mean, I didn't think he was like a Darth Vader, but I kind of liked that they went a different way with that. Especially since that last movie did feel like kind of a copy of A New Hope in most respects. I think the big thing I liked about this movie was that I had fun watching it.
Oh yeah, it's enjoyable for sure.
It's a good summer blockbuster movie. I'm not sure how it will rank as a Star Wars movie and how timeless it will feel in 4 or 5 years, or even just when special effects get even better than these ones somehow.
Oh, but the special effects are real. I mean, it's still going to look real though, because the special effects don't look special effecty. I don't think it's going to age in the way that the prequels might age.
I don't know. Maybe. Probably it seemed that way to Lucas at the time. We'll see. But I don't know where this is going to rank later on. I just know I did enjoy it. That's why I gave it a pretty good rating in our last video when we reviewed it officially. And I would still recommend it to people who are going through all the Star Wars movies and getting into the series, because it has like a goodly share of that Star Wars spirit that we came to know and love.
Yes. Yeah, Poe's adventurous. He's like a Han, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Finn is awesome. Rey is awesome. Kylo is like better than he was before. I think I'm optimistic about where the series is going. I mean, I wish they would fix the stuff that I was talking about, but on the whole, I'm happy. I'll be back for more.
Yeah, and the bright side for the next movie is that they've kind of made themselves a blank slate. They can do whatever they want now. They already got rid of Snoke. They also got rid of Luke. There's nothing, and Leia will have to disappear as well, so there's nothing to hold them back.
Yeah.
You kind of pointed this out with the old guard thing, but...
So what do you think? Do you think Kylo's going to turn to the good? I think it's obviously going to turn to the good.
Really, you do? I don't see how he could.
That's how it always ends, right? Vader turned good.
Well, Vader turned good, but like we already had that song and dance between Rey and Kylo now. I don't think it's going to go the same way it went for her and Vader. Or for
that'd be
Vader.
That'd be a different twist. So
it would kinda, but I think in these kind of movies, especially considering they're made by Disney, they have to end with someone falling down a large pit, just like the original trilogy.
Well, and here's the thing too: like the old guard is gone, but Kylo Ren is a Skywalker.
That's true.
His, not by name, but you know.
No,
like,
he really is though.
Yeah, I mean, like he's
Skywalker.
He's and he's got Solo blood too. I forgot about that.
Good stuff.
That's good too. You know, but like being the grandson of Vader, that's an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. So that saga, it still continues on in him.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's a good time to be anticipating the next Star Wars movie.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Oh, so overall, my rating, I give this movie an 8 out of 10.
Oh yeah, I gave the movie a B+.
That's all we've got to say about The Last Jedi.
Thank you again for doing this with me, Jay.
Yeah, I really enjoy this, and if you guys enjoyed this review, I have a YouTube channel where I give not movie reviews, although I may start, but I talk about motivation, entrepreneurship, business, success, work habits, things like that, things to help you improve your life, and I'm going to link it at the bottom of this review, and if you're interested in either of our channels, Douglas also does movie
We're going to link to each other's channels, yeah.
Yeah, just hit like, or feel free to share it with your friends, or subscribe for more content, because we'll put out content in this vein.
Yeah, hopefully we can maybe do something like this together again if people like it.
Yeah, let us
someday.
know. Let us know. Like we really enjoyed
Yeah.
making this video.
And we were talking kind of off camera earlier. We could even do reviews of other stuff besides Star Wars or the other Star Wars movies.
The Godfather movies.
We've seen all of those. We've seen some of them together. At least one of them.
Number 2 we saw together. Yeah.
And
years ago,
we both like Pulp Fiction. We could have a whole video about what makes Pulp Fiction so great.
Yeah. I mean, The Lion King. We love The Lion King.
Oh yeah, that's a great classic.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we could do. We've seen a lot of stuff together. Yeah.
So yeah, let us know what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And check us both out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.